I had a big life event where my father was also my business partner, got terminal cancer and passed, and
Sorry to hear
made me
that.
really start to focus on like, hey, this health stuff is not doesn't it can't just be an afterthought.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Ryan, and today we're going to talk a little bit with a patient of mine, Matt. Matt has been with me for the past, about 3 months or so, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his experience with the clinic. So, Matt, why don't you start by saying a little bit about who you are, where you live, some of the things you do, some of your hobbies, your family life.
Yeah, so I'm 46 years old, live in the Pacific Northwest, kind of on the border of Oregon and Washington, near Portland, Oregon. Smaller town. I do real estate consulting in Oregon and Washington. In terms of hobbies, last couple of decades have been pretty intense with raising children. I have a 20, 18, and 16-year-old, so I'm
Mhm.
kind of transitioning from being a very hands-on full-time parent to having kids out of the house. And I'm just now getting to a point where I'm picking up some hobbies. I coached a lot of youth sports prior to that and spent a lot of time with the kids. But as those responsibilities subdue and opportunities, quite frankly, subdue, shifting into some other things. And one of those has been trying to take a little bit better care of myself. I do, in terms of activities outside of work, I do like to work out quite a bit. I'm a runner and like to get to the gym and enjoy stretching as part of my daily routine. And then outside of that, my wife and I are kind of foodies, and we like to eat
Mhm.
out a lot, which is not always aligned with the program, but I found that almost every place serves fish. So there's some good options even when you're indulging a little bit.
Well, good. I'm glad that you're thinking outside the box and choosing healthy choices when you go out there. But very good. That's one of the I guess a number of habits that you picked up that you probably internally had already, but that you've kind of brought to the surface while you're being a patient at the clinic.
Yeah. And that's I guess what I would say has been my favorite aspect of the clinic so far is I've been on somewhat of a self-guided journey towards, achieving a better level of wellness and feeling
Mhm.
better. And I just wasn't having anywhere close to the level of success I've had since having you as a little bit of a guide and having some of the tools that you use in terms of blood tests and other things versus, hey, if I
Mhm.
take this, I feel a little bit better and this and that. It's been really great, actually kind of taking the next step from like, hey, I'm doing this on my own and trying to figure this out from a very trial and error basis to working with somebody who's like, hey, I've done this with a lot of other people your age, and this has worked for a lot of people, and it might work for you. And it's been a lot of success as you can tell with some of our recent returns in terms of lab values and overall just feeling a lot better.
Well, good. And I'm glad that you kind of move forward to some of the experiences that you had after joining the clinic and starting on therapy. But for a minute, I would like you to go back to that time period before you had worked with us. And you mentioned you had kind of done things on your own. So why don't we talk a little bit about that? What were some of the goals that you were trying to accomplish? And what were you doing? And in your mind, why were you not successful?
I guess some of the things I was doing was really trying to stress management, I guess, has become a really big part of my life in the last few years. And
Hmm.
it was one of the driving forces behind joining the clinic. But I was having a lot of trouble managing my stress. I try to do that typically through exercise and that works great when you're feeling well, but you don't always feel well and you're not always injury free when you're in your mid 40s. It's just an unfortunate reality of life, especially when you've been active, earlier in your life and have some lingering
Hmm.
injuries from previous athletic experiences, right? So it was just, taking a lot of different supplements. It was taking like ketones and nootropics and experimenting with different protein powders and essential aminos, just trying to find, a mix to help me kind of reach back, into the years and get some of that energy that I had when I was younger that unfortunately just the reality of life was I just didn't have anymore. The other reality of life was I needed that energy more now than I did back then. So really trying to do everything I could to get back to a level where, I was had the energy and enthusiasm for life that I needed to be successful for all the people that were counting on me. So that was really kind of the driving force. And I was, having issues with that, with a lot of responsibility comes a lot of pressure with trying to work long hours and achieve certain things. There's a lot of frustration involved. And, I kind of felt like that was getting out of hand and was feeling a little, frustrated and was being a little, intense or, taking my work life home with me. And I'd always been have been able to do a really good job of separating those two. And now they're kind of bleeding into each other, and was looking for some help with dealing with that. I kind of intuitively knew that it was lack of energy and other things that was putting me in the situation where that was happening, but couldn't find a path out of that on my own. So that was what kind of brought me to the clinic.
I see. And your experience is not unusual. It's just so funny to me. Sometimes I see a lot of my patients, they garner experience and are at the top of their field and they're doing really, really well. They've established these connections, their experiential knowledge is at their peak, but their energy levels or hormonal levels drop. Some of the things that they were able to kind of ignore in their 20s and 30s come to a head, and they're like, oh no, I mean, like, here I am with these great opportunities in front of me, but my health and my energy and my focus and all these other things I took for granted are dropping down. And so obviously that's a big concern. It was for you and for a lot of my patients. So you recognize this and you recognize you need some help and you made some changes on your own, but it sounds like you weren't making a lot of headway into this. What were some of the fears that you had with working with a physician? I'm very happy that you ended up working with me in the clinic, and I recognize there's many other options, but what made you kind of say, okay, now's the time that I need to work with someone, now's the time I need to work with a physician? And what were some of the reasons perhaps that made you kind of wait for a while to do so?
I guess some of my concerns were just like the commitment level the program was requesting. And then, I guess I'm just a little skeptical, of a person in general, and have had a varied array of experiences with medical practitioners, right? So sometimes I've, connected with doctors and felt like, hey, this has gone really well. And other times it's just not gone well. There's been no connection. There's, I feel like they're talking down to me and not really listening to what I'm saying. And so was concerned that I might have that kind of experience. And there's, I think, a questionnaire that I filled out, and it's like, hey, what time commitment do you have? I'm like, well, I don't know what level of time commitment I have. I'm really trying to work a lot. And, I don't want to make a big investment and then, set myself up for failure where I don't have time for it. And then I had a big life event where my father, who was also my business partner, got terminal cancer and passed. And made me really start to focus on like, hey, this health stuff is it can't just be an afterthought, because if it is, you might you might put some people you love in a bad situation down the road. So I really started to focus in on that a little bit more, and was like, hey, you know what? This is something I need to be proactive on, not reactive to. And that was kind of the big prompting. It's like, okay, let's do this. And then just some frustration with the lack of progress I was making, despite making some investments and supplements that weren't necessarily doing what I was hoping they would do.
Okay. Okay, so is a commitment issue that you're like, well, do I have the time, the energy, the focus to go down this pathway? Is perhaps an issue with will I fit with the provider, which is quite reasonable. Just as there are many different positions or many different modalities of thinking, and some people's personalities don't work well together. It is what it is, right? So that's a valid concern.
Yeah, yeah, and that's I think it is across all relationship spectrums, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and it doesn't necessarily mean the person was a bad person or something like that. If it didn't work, it just means it didn't work.
Yeah, but it's a legitimate concern, and you probably and in general, I think most people when they're looking for a consultant or looking for an advisor, they want someone that will allow them to be heard, right? And so that they can best, understand their concerns and provide a solution forward. And so I think that was very important. And then it sounds like one of a couple of the inciting events that allowed you to get started was idea of your mortality, and to a certain extent. With I know you and your father worked very closely. You probably obviously loved him very much, and to
Yeah,
see him
yeah,
pass is very very difficult.
yeah, and it just brought it into perspective because he was in fantastic shape too. He wasn't
Yeah.
some ignored his health, but he wasn't taking advantage of all that medical science has to offer these days either, right? He was 71 when he passed with his 70th birthday. He
That's
came in
very young.
showing me his physical results, and I was impressed. I was like, "Geez, this guy might be in better shape than me." It was something that got me started towards working, and then we got sick. I was like, "Oh, geez, there's some things besides just making sure you look good associated with health that I ended up feeling was important for me to take advantage of."
Well, okay, so why don't we transition to after you joined the program? So after that you joined the program, what were some of the changes that you noticed in your physique, your health, and how you felt? And before you answer, I do want to kind of brag on you for a bit. I was really impressed with some of the changes you had made just in a very short period of time in your lab values. You were able to really slice your total cholesterol from 202, which arguably is not terrible, but to a much better level at 161. And you're able to get your LDL down from 143, which is quite unhealthy, down to 106, which is excellent. And you were also able to improve your apolipoprotein B. A lot of far-reaching, or a lot of PCPs and cardiologists are utilizing this marker over LDL because it's more holistic in terms of the lipoproteins that are associated with cholesterol deposition. You're able to drop it to a much healthier level. We still have some work to do. We want to get under 90, but we're moving in the right direction. And then just a generalized marker of inflammation, your CRP, it went from just about 2 down to 1.3, which is, again, we need a little bit of work to go, but you're in a much better state. Once we're below 1, we'll be quite good. And then I also was very happy with your changes in your body fat. When you came to me, now I want to make sure this is clear. It's not that you were in terrible shape by any means, right? You're at 15% body fat, which is not a bad body fat percentage, right? But you want to improve, and you're like, hey, how can I get below this to something closer to like the teens or the sub 10% body fat? And one thing with a lot of my patients is once you get to that 15%, it's a lot harder to drop body fat and stay leaner because you have to make some caloric changes, you have to work out a little bit harder. But you've made some great strides towards that. And we've just in the span of 2.5 months, you've been able to cut down about 2 percentage points, which is really, really good.
Already there. If you had I think I can resend another one. It's down to 11.5 now.
11.5. My goodness, that's amazing. So yeah, I guess this
No.
must have been a little older,
And
but
it's a
yeah.
nice gradual line. If you look at the in-body thing, it's not like, big like spikes and valleys. So I feel like it's a really sustainable change too.
Yeah, 15.3 to 11.5. That's incredible. Really, really good. And so, just from like a objective standpoint, you've made some really, really big changes. What are some of the changes you noticed from a subjective standpoint, like how you felt?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest and number one change was my mood.
Mm,
Some of the supplements that you gave me
mm,
really helped me. My frustration level came down. It felt like I don't have a way to measure my cortisol levels, but it felt like they were out of control, and it felt like they got back under control really, really quickly. And that's allowed me to be more productive, and kind of be better husband, better father, better boss, kind of all those things when you're not on edge. You're just a little more able to do that in an effective manner. And then I see my energy level increased dramatically too. And I felt like with some of the things that were prescribed, my injuries that have been nagging for a while finally started to recover. Recovery from exercise was a little better, and so those were the major things, right? Because your mood you feel almost immediately, and I thought that was really, really positive. And then being able to stay healthy enough to be consistent is one of the really, I found the challenge of fitness in your 40s. It's like, how are you going to train through these injuries? And it made doing that much easier. Now I might just be, a lucky couple of months, but I don't think it's a coincidence at all. Like, I feel a lot better, and a lot of longstanding injuries have improved dramatically.
I do think a part of that is genetics, the fact that, you've changed your diet and you've changed your workout program, but genetically you're maybe more predisposed to heal better than certain individuals, I suppose, I guess. But
It's always been that way historically. Yeah. And I guess the other thing I would really say too is, as you mentioned, I wasn't in terrible shape when we went through the diet. I was like, this probably fits like 50% of what I do.
Yeah.
But having it mapped out and having where I could go to get from good to great just made it easy to accomplish, right? It was like, okay, well, if I can just make these changes and these changes and these changes, then let's see what that happens. And immediately knows, well, I'm feeling better. I got more energy. I hadn't brought it up before, but I've suffered from severe migraines for 25 years, so over half my life, and I just kind of anticipated those were just going to be a reality of life. And some of the things that we've done have really improved the symptoms, and overall, where it's not as big of a concern. And there's medication that I've been taking for two plus decades that I'm now able to reduce for the first time. And those were things that I just kind of didn't believe were going to be a reality ever. I just kind of was like, well, I'm not happy about it, but this is how it goes. This is the hand I was dealt. You're gonna have to replay it. But as we work together, I'm like, wow, this is a reality that I can take this and not have to worry about going to the hospital basically with a migraine so severe I can't,
Oh yeah.
going out.
Well, I guess the main point I want to mention is a wide variety of patients come to me, some of who are in very dire straits, other individuals who are more athletically inclined like yourself. But the reality is there is some room for appointment or improvement for all of those individuals when you improve your diet, exercise regimen, hormonal optimization, supplementation. You can see profound results even in someone that is ostensibly as healthy as you are. 15% body fat's very, very good, but again, 11.5% is even better. And a total cholesterol 200 isn't bad, but 160 is better, right? And so there's always ways to, and I like the term good to great. So there's always an opportunity to go to great. Okay, so we talked about some of the changes you made in your health, and you kind of alluded to this briefly, but what are some of the changes specifically you saw in terms of your business and career as well as your family? What are the things that you noticed that were different after joining the clinic?
I just feel like, on the family life, I was much more understanding and tolerant, and, and just more available and present. I guess we noticed that pretty quickly. And in terms of professionally, I put a lot of effort into that already, but I think, so I very conscious on, trying to be the very best I could be. But I'm pretty sure that everybody would say that I've improved a little bit over the past couple of months, just in terms of capacity, memory, to, following up on things, being available for people. Having more energy is not a bad thing when you're trying to work 60 plus hours a week and mentor people and, make sure that you're not only doing the best, what you should be doing, but you make sure other people need to be doing what they're doing. There's a fair amount of mental and physical energy that gets expended doing that, and feeling fresher and having more of it, it has definitely been beneficial. So I can't necessarily quantify it, but just say like, I've been doing what I was doing a little bit better.
Yeah, which honestly, you are your best judge of that. And if other individuals inside of yourself, your family and your friends and your colleagues are all mentioning, "Hey, what's going on? You're a totally different person. Something's working for sure."
Yeah, yeah.
I do want to kind of talk a little bit about some of those fears you had. So you did mention the commitment fears. You mentioned the concern about working with a provider when you started the clinic. How have those fears played out? Like, were they legitimate? Were you able to dismiss them to
No,
a certain extent?
no, none of those ended up materializing or coming to
Okay.
be right. So, I think in our first interview, I was like, okay, this guy not only knows what he's talking about, but he also listens to what I have to say, right? So, that was something that I got over pretty quickly, and quite frankly, wouldn't have moved forward with if we hadn't gotten over that. And then in terms of the availability and stuff, I fitness somewhat begets fitness, right? So being able to feel a little bit better, have a little more energy. I guess I would say I'm not. If I had worked with my previous energy level, maybe my fears would have kind of been realized. But I had this new energy level to work with, and so they just quite frankly were not, right, because I had all this extra energy. It felt like I had a couple more hours in the day, and only was adding another hour of responsibility. So, just the experience, almost immediately kind of helped me feel like, man, this is a great investment on my part. It was definitely the right move to make.
Yeah, and I like the term investment because that's really what it is. It's an investment into your health and, well, quite honestly, an investment into the people you care about because the way in which you interact with the world will manifest through how well you take care of yourself. So yeah, I'm glad that you made that choice. Okay, to sum things up, what would you tell individuals who are in your shoes and are considering going down and choosing a clinic or going down this pathway? What would you tell them about trying this program and working with Sumo Up and myself?
I always like to just give people good global advice initially and say, so just do your research, but definitely include this clinic on your research, right? Because you do a really good job at what you do. And you said, just the reality of life is you're not going to be a great fit for everybody. So there might be somebody, you might do an interview with somebody and their personality not click or whatever reason. But, if somebody's considering it, I would tell them I've had a fantastic experience, and if you're considering it, you should look into this as one of the options because it's been a really good option for somebody that was in a similar situation in the recent past.
Very good. Well, Matt, I really appreciate you sharing your experience in the clinic, and I'm very thankful to have you as a patient.
Thankful to have you as a provider because the wellness level has been significantly better since we started working together. So it's not an insignificant thing. I definitely feel like I'm in a better situation to, make sure that I'm continuing to support all the people who are counting on me to support them.
I really appreciate that. Thanks again.